When you really sit down and make a list of all the roles and then reflect on how to actually behave in terms of, am I really being me in that role, or am I putting some sort of filter on or mask on or something like that?
When I started to take all those masks off and realize, actually, I don't want to be carrying these identities. I don't want to be these different roles that people portrayed me in. And I actually want to be loved and nurtured and not always be the one that has to come in and save the day. I want a knight to save me, but on my terms.
When I got out of all that, what dawned on me was that I had not been me. I had not been authentic. I had been giving away my power.
We're wearing all of these different hats all the time, and sometimes we wear them because of fear. Sometimes we wear them because we kind of have been conditioned over time.
I created for myself ways to maneuver this mask because sometimes we need to. We need to sometimes put on masks, and can we consciously recognize what's going on?
I was bleeding out for years without even realizing that I was bleeding out, just emotionally, spiritually, mentally, all the things. And you're just trying to continue on.
Hello, beautiful souls. It is Sophia from Sacred You. Thank you so much for being here. But before we dive into today's Wisdom Circle, I have a small request from my heart. If our conversations ever resonate with you or support you on your journey, please subscribe to our channel or like this video. It helps us grow Sacred You, welcome more powerful voices into this space, and keep you connected to everything we share. Thank you so much for walking this path with us, and let us begin with today's conversation. Welcome to another fantastic Wisdom Circle, Being You. I love this conversation because it's all about living life authentically and being true to ourselves. So, of course, I'm Sophia from Sacred You, and we are honored to be able to present these Wisdom Circles. But more importantly, with us today, we have women from all over the world, and especially the amazing Jennylee Taylor, who is facilitating today's Wisdom Circle. So Jennylee, I'm going to hand it over to you to introduce yourself and the topic before we get to say hi to all these incredible women, and I will be back at the end. So thank you.
Fantastic, Sophia. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name's Jennylee Taylor, and this is a topic, being you and living life authentically, is a topic that I'm really passionate about, because I guess it's been the most exciting journey in my own personal life. And my role now is to support women and men to really take a deep dive into who they really are behind how we present in the world, and to live life authentically from a place of being real and being themselves. I do that mainly through, I have a breathwork practitioner facilitation, and I'm a trainer, also an author, and I've started a group called Women with Spirit, and we go out into the outdoors and find out who we really are in the outdoors, connecting to nature. So that's a bit about me. I've got some beautiful women on with me today to support this conversation and really take a deep dive into. Today we're going to talk about unraveling the masks or the roles we play in life, and I'll talk about that a bit more, but I'll invite the women on today to really introduce themselves, where they're from, what the focus of their work is, and their first thoughts about being you and living life authentically. So Anne, would you like to jump in and introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. Hi, I'm Ann Utterback, and I live in Georgetown, Texas. And I am a certified Kingdom Life coach, an author, and speaker. And I love this authentic conversation, because just these last few years, I've gone through a total upheaval in my life, and figuring that out and really starting to get back to myself, into how I was truly created before that relationship, and finding that I'm learning to live more and more authentically every day. And so I love this conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne, and welcome. Suzanne, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thanks, Jennylee. I am Susanne Blohm. I'm from Kamloops, BC, Canada, so north of Vancouver. My focus is really, I'm a manifestation coach. So I work with women and men who are really tired of repetitive results and living Groundhog Day and help them to create changes in their life, quantum leaping to what they'd really love. Our conversation today about living authentically is right up my alley because if we're not living authentically, we are calling something that does not align with us into our lives. And then we need to question things like, what has happened here? We can end up in jobs we don't love, marriages we don't love, you name it, it'll happen. And so, yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome. Looking forward to this conversation with you. Sallyann, would you like to come on board and tell us about yourself?
Thank you so much, Jennylee. Yes, love this topic. So important to be authentic, and I think we can give away our power sometimes without realising. So having that awareness is so important. So my name's Sallyann Joy. I'm on the north coast of New South Wales, Australia, and my offering business is elevating consciousness. And in that, I help people remember who they are beyond societal conditioning, beyond the restrictions that have been put on them through their life, and come back to remembering the truth of who they truly are, and just connecting in with the wisdom of why they came in here, that knowing, so they can use that to guide them through their life. So a very appropriate topic. I also run a fortnightly free of charge offering called Circles of Light each Saturday morning, Sydney time. That's totally free of charge, where I assist people to connect back into the light, because that's who we all truly are, but we have forgotten. So really looking forward to this conversation today. Thank you, Jennylee.
Welcome, Sallyann. Thank you. Catherine, welcome.
Thank you so much, Jennylee. So my name's Catherine CRESTANI. I'm an inner authority guide and a writer and speaker on conscious leadership and human potential, which means I lead women back to listening to themselves instead of everyone else outside of them. And through that, I had to go through a lot of my own identity shifts, very similar to Anne. It's okay, take the next mask off, take the next mask off, and really learning to come back to yourself as you step into the next level of who you are and your expansion.
Amazing. We're all on the same page, it would appear. Rachel, please introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, I'm Rachel Mailer. I'm from Brighton, UK, and I am a dating expert. I primarily work with women over 30, usually into their late 50s as well. And I have a process where you lead with your feminine energy. So it's all about that inner work that you do first of all. So you know you're the most radiant queen possible, and deep identity work too, because when you fully love yourself, that's when you will attract a really healthy love to you. And then you won't even care that you get no's. You're like, great, one less person that I have to go on a date with. Fantastic. Let's move forward and find my actual person and attract that to me. And it just makes you even more magnetic.
Thanks for that, Rachel. I think for me, you just nailed one of the biggest benefits of really coming back to being yourself and being real and being authentic, is that you are so solid and grounded in knowing who you are, that and projecting that out to attract someone else in your life and in all sorts of relationships, that it really, nothing else matters.
Exactly. Yeah. The relationships we build with ourselves, with other people, that then spans out into every other thing that we do. It is the first thing that we need to feel safe and secure within ourselves, so we can then step out and create all different beautiful things.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you for that. Okay, so this month the topic is being you, living life authentically, and I really wanted to take a deeper dive into that the roles we do play in life, whether you're a mother, a sister, an auntie, a niece, a wife, all those sorts of roles in your family. And then there's the roles you play in the outside world, which is you might be a businesswoman, you might be a leader, you might be someone who's working in a team, you might be in a sporting environment, all sorts of roles we play in life. And when you really sit down and make a list of all the roles and then reflect on how to actually behave in terms of, am I really being me in that role, or am I putting some sort of filter on or mask on or something like that? So yeah, and what that looks like and the identities we may have adopted to survive, succeed, or be loved as we play those roles. That's the conversation we want to have today. It's fairly broad. So, the invitation is to just jump in and talk about, when you reflect on your life, what masks or identities did you learn to wear in order to feel safe and successful, and how did that impact you, and how did you move forward? Would anyone like to start? Catherine?
I can go. For me, when I stepped into running a business and owning that businesswoman persona, I had to really own masculine energy, because I was in an allied health profession dominated by women, dealing with other allied health professions dominated by men, or doctors and that sort of thing. So it was this constant undermining of who I was, or being told I can't do it because I'm a woman and what would I know, or didn't matter that I had all this business acumen and that sort of thing. So it really, and then even when my business partnership, I always had to be the bad guy because my business partner was too soft. So then I put on this identity of got portrayed as being very cold-hearted, which is the complete opposite of who I am. I'm not that person, but I had to step into that role to keep the balance and to keep things in check. And then when I started to take all those masks off and realize, actually, I don't want to be carrying these identities. I don't want to be these different roles that people portrayed me in. And I actually want to be loved and nurtured and not always be the one that has to come in and save the day. I want a knight to save me, but on my terms, like Rachel said, because it's showing up as myself. And even when I was in my first marriage, I believed that I always had to do things to make my ex-husband happy rather than what I was doing to make myself happy. We actually give up, well, I found I gave up parts of myself to step into these identities or roles that society created for me. And I remember when I started doing more spiritual work and channeling for people, I always got shown the same image of stop putting yourself in boxes, which are your identities and roles, and actually smash through those boxes and allow yourself just to be in flow of who you need to be in that moment. Because really that's you allowing your authentic self to shine and come through, rather than keep putting on these different masks or wearing the expectations of how people expect you to show up.
Yeah, amazing. So much in there to unpack. And I love that you actually had a moment where you realized that you didn't want to be that. My story ended up in the same place, but it resulted in me just going, I was so out of sorts with who I was, that because I also worked in a very masculine field, which is shipbuilding in Australia, which was all men pretty much, and a couple of admin women, and they did an amazing job at, that edginess that I had to find to actually survive in that world. And I think part of it, looking back, is it's also what I thought I had to do to make it, rather than necessarily what I needed to do to make it, if that makes sense. Because all the men who were around me did support me in my work, but I still found that I had to get very edgy and angular and that masculine. And really, my journey has been into how to flow into be that more feminine and be myself, because we need both, don't we? And I love that you said, what is it that I need to be as part of myself in the moment? And that sometimes might be bringing forward your more feminine self, sometimes might be bringing forward your more masculine self, but it's always in the knowing of, this is who I am. I'm not putting on a facade. So I love that, Catherine. Thank you. Yeah. Sallyann.
Yeah, yes, thank you both. And Catherine, I can, really relate to what you're saying. I was married to somebody for just under 20 years, and I didn't realize until I got out of that I was giving away my power. My ex-husband was very narcissistic, very controlling, and he used illness that he made up as a way of manipulation. And So I was forever running around the place trying to look after him and giving away my power continually, and my needs were not being met. And just to make matters even more complicated, we had a business that we ran together for 10 of those years, or nearly 10 of those years. And I had to take on various roles to hold that business together. So I was giving either to him and his controlling ways, or I was giving to try and prop the business up. So I was having these multiple hats of being his carer, looking after him, being the wife, walking on eggshells all the time because of the narcissistic behavior. And then with the business, trying to hold the business together in the end by myself until I could finally sell it. But when I got out of all that, what dawned on me was that I had not been me. I had not been authentic. I had been giving away my power. But the reason I share this story is I think sometimes we can be in those situations and we just don't realize. We get swallowed up and we lose our power and we lose our authenticity in these situations without even realizing, because due to circumstances, we're trying to plug the holes everywhere and just keep the ship afloat, so to speak. And so I think we can fall into these situations without even realizing at times due to these circumstances. So I'd really like to say to anybody, just try and step back a bit from whatever your situation is that you are in. If you're feeling overwhelmed, try and sit back and see if you can just have a look as an observer and see where maybe you are giving up your power and you're taking on these masks and these roles that is not authentically you. And just look at those situations and just see whether there are ways and things you can do to come back as much as possible in that situation to be authentically you and who you truly are. Thank you.
Thanks, Sallyann. And I love that you mentioned that often we don't know it's happening along the way. It's a bit like does everyone know about the proverbial frog in the hot water? The frog gets into the cold water and then gradually the temperature rises, and just enough that the frog can make an adjustment and get used to that temperature. And then all of a sudden one day the water's boiling and they can't get out. It's a bit like that. It's kind of can creep up over you over time. And often, especially in relationships, so you can be challenged. People will challenge you about, if you don't play these roles, you mustn't care. That's not true, because we all can be a mother, a carer, a sister, an auntie, a businesswoman, an employee, all those things. And we can do it from a place of being ourselves, not from a place of expectations from others. I think that's really important. And it's taking a step back and starting to question whether you are being authentic is a really important step to take along the way. Sallyann, thank you. Yeah. Rachel, would you like to jump in?
Yeah, going off of both of the points, I unfortunately was also in a very past relationship now, a very toxic one. So I can relate to what Sallyann was saying. And I think that, like, for me, I was very young at the time. I was like 19, didn't really know what red flags were, or the act of what love bombing is now called, like giving lots of presents, or something is a bit iffy and then you get like a reward and you're like, wait, but I'm a bit confused. This feels wrong in my gut, but then you're suppressed not to listen to it because now you've got a prize. So it's like that motion of they're trying to change your behavior slowly. So then when something big happens, you don't notice it as much. You're getting numb from whatever situation's happening. So like you were saying, like taking a step back, what I do actually with my clients is a great one is just talking to the mirror and pretending that who you're talking to is like your best friend, because it's the saying of like, you will take someone else's advice, but not your own. So if you pretend your reflection is your friend and not you, and just say whatever you're holding back or whatever it is, like you can voice note it now and just be like, this is happening, listen to it back and give yourself advice. What would you give to yourself? And what would you say? It's a really great way to self-coach yourself out of stuff and listen back to yourself. Also, if it's not that serious. If it's just maybe you're having an argument with someone, or you just want to rant but you don't want any advice. Sometimes we just need to let it out, but we don't actually want anyone to help us with it. So this is a great way of expression. And then afterwards, you can listen to it back and be like, okay, I was overreacting, my bad. I'll go and apologize. I don't think you've just got it out there. So yeah, it's that whole thing of, you were saying, we're wearing all of these different hats all the time, and sometimes we wear them because of fear. Sometimes we wear them because we have been conditioned over time. When I'm now married to someone lovely, but like growing up thinking, oh, I have this idea of what marriage is or what I'm going to be as a wife. And now I'm 36 and I'm like, I thought this was going to happen when I was 30, because that's what the movies I saw were, that I watched, happened, or that's what my parents did or something, and it doesn't quite happen to you. And sometimes you can think that something's wrong with you, but really it's just society's changed so much. We are not our parents, we are just ourselves, and you've got to own yourself. And like I was saying, how I help my clients, and we were talking about our voice, being ourselves. Today in society, women especially, we're brought up to be a bit palatable, so that when we feel that we have something to say, we're like, oh no, I can't say that because someone might not like it. And it's not even a thought of, I don't know even who that someone is, I might not even know them, but just in case, I want to keep the peace, or it's not quite like what we're meant to say or what we're meant to do. And I think owning that and just saying it is sometimes such a release of what you actually needed to do. And usually it's not as bad as you thought it was. And then you've confidence throughout that.
Yeah, I think
and you're like, oh, that was fine.
Yeah, the voice, having a voice is a big part of coming back to yourself and being authentic. It's actually, as Catherine was saying, it's actually being okay with voicing what your needs are without worrying about what everyone else's expectations are. Really important. And I love the mirror exercise, because I do a lot of work with the world is your mirror, and what you put out or what you're receiving is a reflection of what's happening inside of you. But I love talking to yourself in the mirror. It's the ultimate in being honest with yourself, isn't it? If you can say these things. And that's a big part of coming back to being you and living life authentically. It's actually to face up to, my life's not how I want it to be, and it's not okay for it. It's not okay for me anymore to be like that. And where have I contributed to getting myself into this place as well? There's this radical honesty that comes up with the inner work. Yeah. Thanks, Rachel. Susanne.
We're talking about these masks that we wear, and there are conscious masks and unconscious masks. When I was 22 and became a teacher, I didn't realize what that meant, but I moved to a very small town, 3,500 people, more horses than people. And every time I went to the grocery store, it was a parent-teacher interview day. And I'm like, wait, what's going on here? And all eyes are on you. You're in a fishbowl. And I realized, oh, wait, I have to act a certain way. I have to. And I felt all of this pressure from this mask that I didn't even realize I was about to put on coming. And I don't know, maybe it has something to do with my human design. I'm a manifesting generator. I had a moment of screw this. And which parts of this mask am I okay with? And which ones am I not? And I walked myself through it would be absolutely okay to be polite in the grocery store, to say hello to the parents, even of the ones whose kids are my biggest trouble. Those things that are accepted. And this happened. Then there was but will I absolutely have no fun? Will I never, maybe I was 22, would I never go out and celebrate on an evening? Yes, I would. What would that look like? Not in my community. Where would I go? And I created for myself ways to maneuver this mask, because sometimes we need to. Yes, Sallyann was talking about her marriage with a husband who's narcissistic. We need to sometimes put on masks, and can we consciously recognize what's going on? And of course, if we can't handle the mask, that role isn't one that's for us. But there are times when we need a mask, when our parents are elderly and they're sick and we're looking after them, and there's this mask of patient daughter. that I know is not me, but I need that sometimes. And so there are masks that we can use to our benefit. And back to that teacher mask, I taught in that community for 14 years. It was great. It was fun. I knew how to wiggle in the mask, and I became respected and loved within that community, not by all the students necessarily, but by the parents. And then I think that we can be conscious of what's happening and ask ourselves, are we ready? Sometimes a baby's coming along and suddenly you're becoming a mom. I wouldn't call that a mask, right? It's a role. But we're doing that consciously. Oh, how am I going to be acting here? We can do that in other roles as well. We don't have to take a laid back role. I think that's one of the biggest things for me is maintaining my own power. And I think Sallyann was talking about that. Don't give your power away. What within this role are you willing to work with? And what within this role needs to change so that you can still be you? Because you can. If you can't bend the role, if you can't bend that mask, then why are you in it?
I think you brought up a great discernment for me then, just Susanne, between the words role and mask. Because we need to have roles. This time, you're right, we need to have roles, and we all have a role as a wife, mother, carer, whatever it is. But do we need to put on, and coming back to being you in that role, but do we need to put a mask on to stay in that role? The mask is you stepping behind something and not necessarily being yourself. And you are right that in times where, especially around safety, especially in relationships or where you feel threatened physically, mentally, or emotionally through manipulation, sometimes we do have to put a mask on and pretend that it's okay just to survive in that moment. But it can be a conscious thing. And then we make a decision one way or another to keep playing that role with that mask on, or playing that role without the mask on, just being ourselves, or not playing the role at all. Like you said, moving out of it. So I think there's a real discernment there at a deeper level to understand the difference between having a role, which we all have multiple roles, and being yourself in that role with or without having a mask that takes away or disempowers or something.
It's almost like that hat you put on to step into that space. And a mask is something more where you're like hiding almost. And for me, I hid for years but didn't realize I was hiding. And that's like what Sallyann was talking about, that losing your power. I wrote a course that's called Stop the Bleed. And that's what that is. Because I was bleeding out for years without even realizing that I was bleeding out, just emotionally, spiritually, mentally, all the things. And you're just trying to continue on. And we all as women, we understand what it's like to just bleed and how exhausted we get and how fatigued we get and the pain we get. But we have to put on that smile. Heaven forbid anyone know that we're doing this right now. We have to just keep going and we're okay. And we have to do all the things, walking that pain and enduring that. And so it's like when you do that emotionally every day for years, it just drains you. And so seeing that and realizing that's what I was doing and then changing it. And then I started to put up healthy boundaries in this relationship. And I was like, oh yeah, I don't have to do that. And just simply putting up those boundaries. And let me tell you, when I started to do that they didn't know what to do. They were like, what is happening? And I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to say no to that. Okay. So finally being that authentic self, finally learning, oh, I can do this. Because when we go through childhood trauma, when we have things that happen to us and we don't heal, we're just surviving. We're trying to play it safe. Or playing small, or we act out all the things that we do because of things that have happened in the past. And so I realized I had to go back to those past and go, oh, where is this coming from? I needed to stop that bleed. I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. And I think we've all said, we look in the mirrors, that's not me. I know me. And the girl I'm looking at right now is not me. So I'm going to go back to me, getting back my life, like who I was created to be. And Catherine, she first talked about the boxes. bust those boxes. I would tell people I homeschooled my kids. They immediately start putting me in all these boxes because I'm a homeschool parent. And I was like, what the hell? Ask a question. Just because I homeschool doesn't mean I'm. So asking those curious questions to help people navigate their own authenticity so that way they understand they can bust out of their own boxes too. And so even us, as we walk, our wisdom is to help other women by not putting them in boxes, by not assuming, but asking curious questions and helping them navigate out of that.
Beautiful. Thanks, Anne. And you also touched on the word boundaries, which I think, Susanne, when you were 22 years old, going into the local shop and getting bombarded by, it's almost like you're switched on as in your teacher role all the time, unless you put a boundary in place. And Anne just talked about boundaries as well. I think that's, and you're right. Because all these patterns come from learned behavior, there's always a source. And we all know that doing the inner work is really the way out of, and it's really relearning about yourself. Who am I really? Why is it that I react to the world in this way that doesn't give me the results that I'd really like to have? All that inner work is important. And also it's giving ourselves permission to put boundaries in place is a big part of that. Yeah. Rachel, would you like to?
Yeah. I was also like, with the different like hats and roles that you have, it's interesting how that you can start in a role and really like it. So for example, I started as a early years teacher. Some of you guys call it kindergarten, working with 0 to 5-year-olds, and I did that for 15 years, absolutely loved it. But towards the end of it, with everything that goes on in the teaching world, whether you're this side of the pond or the other side, it's relatively all the same. I started to feel like I wanted more out of the role, but the role couldn't give me that. So then I felt like I had to put on a mask to stay in the role while looking for other roles that gave me that sense of purpose again. And that's how I became and started to do what I do now, because I already had this on the side. And I thought, what gives me great passion? What do I love? I still want children myself. And I always said to myself, even back in 2009, when I started being a teacher, I was like, I cannot be that parent that has a child at home and goes to work with kids 40 hours a week, because I want to love them and be like, wow, you're walking, and all these marvels that I know will happen step by step. But I was like, I want to really enjoy and love it. Props to anyone that has done that. And it's funny how you can start again in that role that you love so much, but then move into wearing that mask to again, I guess, protect yourself, or really just protect the peace around people not asking too many questions, and people around me getting to know me, and they're like, oh, you're not thinking of leaving us, are you? And you're like, no, what are you talking about? Oh, how's your day? And then finding out that, yeah, like where your passion is, and really realizing that actually, even though something worked back then and I loved it back then, it doesn't mean that it works now. And it's okay to pivot and change and keep developing and growing, because that's what we're here for. So yeah, it's just about that discovery and asking yourself those open questions and ensuring that you keep aligned and to your authentic self.
Yeah, that is so important, Rachel, and thanks for bringing that up, because I think the big message in there for me was that we evolve and change as people over time. And I know in my story, I absolutely love what I did for 5 years, but the last 2 or 3 years, I really knew. I took a look at myself in the mirror at 50 and went, do I really want to be doing this at 60? And the answer was no. And the big change for me was actually giving myself permission to say, this is not who I am anymore. I've gone past what I can do. And I stayed in that work for so long because I was really good at it. It was really easy and it provided me with a lot of financial security. But then to give myself permission to go, actually, no, I'm just going to take a big leap off the cliff, do something completely different and go into the unknown, if you like, because I'm following something in my heart that tells me that I need to be doing something. There's something more out there for me. It's not in alignment with who I am anymore. That's a big change and it took a lot of courage for me. It was almost like an imperative, though. It came to a point where I had to do it. Otherwise, I may as well just be stomping on my own soul. But I don't recommend getting to that point for most people. If you can, but I guess the message is to do those checks and balances along the way. Ask yourself, is what the role that I'm playing now really what I want to keep doing? And if it isn't, either change it or expand within that role or find a way to move and change within the role. Yeah. Sallyann, would you like to chime in?
Yeah, thank you, Jennylee. Going back to what you said about being yourself in the role that you're in, I think is so important. And as we've discussed, we have many different roles going through life: wife, daughter, mother, friend, colleague, whatever. But it's important as much as possible to be yourself in that role, because when we're not ourselves, I think that's when the power gets eroded. So be ourselves in the role, and also as much as we can. And also when it's time for that role to change or us to move on, whatever we do, we have the gifts of our past experience that we take with us, because our soul is evolving all the time. And my belief is our soul came here for learning and for growth. And so we take on roles, we have experiences, we have different careers, however you want to look at it. But just knowing our inner guidance and listening to our inner guidance. And when it is time for us to move on to another role, don't be afraid to do that, because we don't lose. We take those gifts and those experiences and those learnings that we have had from that previous role, job, occupation, whatever, and we can bring that with us along the way and bring this into this new role, this new career, whatever it is. And then that will assist us in moving forward and will also help nourish those we're dealing with, because we're coming through with all these other experiences to support them. So a bit different to roles of wife, mother, or whatever, but it assists in those roles too, because you're being authentic and you can bring those experiences through in those roles as well, that your past experiences you've had, to be able to support others and offer that support and guidance. So really important to listen to your inner voice and follow your guidance as you journey through life, I believe. Thank you.
Yeah, so important. And over time, we get invited to stop listening to our inner voice, don't we? Yeah, for me, that's a true test of being yourself, is to be able to really embody that inner knowing and trust it, and then to voice it even when everyone else is saying, no, that's not the right thing for you. And it's okay to take other people's advice, but also it's because you also got to take that inner advice to move forward. Yeah, Catherine.
Yeah, Sallyann made me think of, I wrote a book last year called Pillars for Life, A Guide to Spiritual Ethics and Practice. And one of the pillars or the core parts is being willing to change, having a willingness to change, because so often we will keep ourselves in a role or leave a mask on because we think it's easier, or we think that's what everyone else wants from us. If you step into that people pleaser mode, which I feel like all of us here have probably been through at some point, but at the same time, we have to learn that it's okay to change, and then allow the space to mourn what didn't happen. So many of my clients that I work with, and even myself, we have to mourn the dreams that didn't occur. mourn the relationship that didn't end up working out how we wanted to, or mourn the role that we thought we had to play, but it wasn't fitting us. I don't know why, but that didn't work for me. It was learning how to let go of that role as a speech therapist, learning how to let go of that role of being the masculine businesswoman, learning how to let go of being a wife that was just making sure everyone else was happy, but forgetting about myself. What were these roles and these masks? But then also having the courage to step out of it, because a lot of people forget to talk about the courage it needs to say, no, I don't want to do that anymore. And when you are truly authentic to yourself, it feels scary because you're going into the unknown. You actually have to back yourself and have courage. And like you said, Jennylee, trust that inner authority, trust that intuition. Same with Sallyann. Everyone's brought this up. We have to trust that voice inside us, even when everyone else is telling us you're crazy or that doesn't make sense or you have no idea. Because I've just found again and again, the more I listen, the more the proof will come later on. I don't know why, but I'm choosing to leave this group that I'm in. And then a few months later, you see it blow up. Oh, thank you for that feedback, universe. But at the time, there was nothing else. You just had to follow that wisdom that was within you. So being willing to change, being authentic, but also having the courage to do that can be such an important thing to honor. And if you have had the courage, look back and celebrate yourself, because we forget to do that. We forget to look back and see how far we've come because we're stuck in whatever the next evolvement is or whatever evolution we're going through. And actually having the ability to praise yourself can be such a beautiful thing too.
Yeah, creating that pause to really reflect and tap yourself on the back for all the things that have worked. And even I've read your book, Catherine, I love your book. Having the willingness to change is all about that evolutionary soul journey, isn't it? And it's that accumulation of wisdom and recognizing when things didn't work for you. So you have the willing to change, recognizing when they did work for you, and just building all that wisdom and knowledge up. And there was a third thing I was going to say, but I've forgotten because there was so much in there. Thanks, Catherine. But yeah, so it's trusting your intuition and also getting to know yourself from the inside out is really important, I feel, in this journey, because we are sovereign beings, meaning that we have the power to operate from the inside out and live in the world, not of the world. So we can walk this path with everything else going on around us, but from a place of being so authentic and empowered that we're relating to that rather than reacting to it. This considered, conscious relationship that we build with the outside world. And the third thing, Catherine, was the courage. It's really important to do understand that it does take courage sometimes, especially when you're so used to working or operating in a certain way, in a certain role with certain masks, and then to all of a sudden go, actually, that's not working for me anymore. It takes courage. And last time we talked about courage equaling commitment, so commitment to self plus doubt. So it's okay to feel, oh shit, what am I doing in here? But taking action as well. So courage equals commitment plus doubt plus action. And it's a really important formula, if you like, that I have to remind myself constantly about when I'm going through this as well. Rachel, would you like to come in? And then Anne.
Yeah. So on the back of what you're just saying right now, and Catherine, with the whole kind of having that courage, it's like from what we have, our past experience create who we are right now, but for the future, we're almost ignoring our past experiences because what we might want to change in the future, we have no evidence for in our past. So we can't look to our past. So we have to step into our future, but also know that how our brain works is that our brain doesn't understand what is a memory and what is just a new thought. So if we can plant new positive thoughts in our head, or I'm going to be the best whatever new teacher there is in this random subject, then you can become that. Because when you really truly believe that is that is your thought, that is your belief process, then you feel like, yes, I'm the best person in that subject. And then your actions, you're going to take all those opportunities, say, that will push you into that role even more. And you're like, wow, I'm so lucky because all these opportunities are coming to me. But really, they have always been there, but you're just actually searching for them now. And then you take action on them and you're like, wow, now this has happened. And now I have evidence to suggest that actually I am really good at this. So then you keep thinking that you're great at it. And it's this massive positive circle. But then also it can happen if you think that you're bad at something, because then your brain will think of all the times that you messed up. You're like, oh, I always trip over. So then you're going to pick up on all the times that you tripped over, and then you keep tripping over and you keep bumping into things. And then that just builds up that negative evidence of everything. So it's really about changing that one thought and really focusing on it to make it positive in whatever role we're wanting to become, or the person we want to be, or the thoughts we want to have. And then eventually you will gain the evidence for it, but it's not necessarily, you might not necessarily have it right now in this reality, but you will eventually get it by having that courage to choose to believe it, when maybe people really close to you can't see that because they're not in your head. So that's okay.
Yeah, no one's in your head except yourself. And we, out of 60,000 thoughts a day, most of those thoughts come from us. It's a conversation we're having with ourselves. So it's really important to clean up that conversation, if you like, Rachel. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And energy flows where your focus is. So if your focus is on the negative, that's what you're going to keep creating. And if your focus is on what you want, then you'll create more of that. Yeah. Anne, thank you.
Yeah, so a couple of things. I wrote notes so I could hopefully remember, because y'all are saying some total mic drops. So it's fantastic. When I think of courage, you have fear, but it's stepping in despite of fear. And so if people are waiting for the fear to go away, it's not. We are going to have fear. We're going to have doubt, insecurities. Sadly, we're wired that way. But courage is stepping in despite of it. And then I love, Jennylee, you keep talking about permission. And I struggled with that. It's like I give myself permission to do the things I want to do. And stepping into new things. It's like allowing yourself to do these things. It's like you have a dream, you have a goal, step in, give yourself permission to pursue it. And sometimes when you do those big things, like Catherine was talking about, like stepping into those big courage and being willing to change, you may need to keep your little group very small and not tell everyone what you're doing and until you get momentum and stuff, because what can happen is people have opinions and they will say things to you and they think maybe they're helping and it's coming against you. Rachel's talking about your mindset. You've got to shift your mindset. And so if you have some naysayers, maybe not tell them right away while you're giving yourself permission to step into this new thing, and then hold those boundaries. Because sometimes it takes us to just step in. And so keep that community, have those people that are cheering you on and who believe in you and are like, yes, girl, go. That's amazing. I see that in you. And yes, you can do it. Because that will help propel you quicker than if you just start. And that's why I'm like careful, because I went through a separation and then a divorce, is don't go on social media. Keep that off, because you're going to have a whole bunch of people tell you a whole bunch of stuff. And you're like, I didn't need it. It's like, I needed to hear me. I needed to heal me without everyone telling me what to do.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we have to keep that community small when we step into those. And the last thing I have on here is the identity versus role. We keep talking about these roles, and we have to be careful, like our identity, what we create is our identity. And it's like, we have to be very careful with that, because roles are different. Roles change, but our identity should be the same. because we are who we are and we're wired the way we're wired. And so we
Yeah.
have to be careful. That's that authenticity, that we keep our identity, we keep our authenticity regardless of what role we're stepping into. So that way we don't lose ourselves once we hit in that role.
Yeah, it's the whatever role we have with the same person. It's sometimes just
Mhm.
different aspects of that person need to be at the forefront to do well in that role, or to be in that role. I didn't write something down and I should have about what you said, but I'll go to Sallyann while I remember. Yeah.
Thank you. As well as, yeah, it does take courage. It does take courage and to make a change and to change a situation or move on to something new. But as well as that, I think it's important to bring your energy back to yourself. And when you're making that change, also trust, because if you're following your guidance and if you're really listening to your own inner guidance, just trusting, because the universe will conspire to support you. Like when you're making a big change and you really feel this is what you're meant to be doing and this is the path you're meant to be taking, just be open to support, unexpected support to come in and be with you, because I have found that personally to be a fact, and I'm sure many others have as well, that support will come in when something's worn out, outdated, and it's not feeding your soul anymore and you need to move. That support will be there to support you and light your way as you move forward. So just know when you're making those big changes, and yeah, it does take courage and it can be really scary, but just look for those little signposts, look for those little lights along the way and that support that is with you. You're not doing it alone.
Yeah, that's an important point, Sallyann. I know in my journey, there's something magical that happens when you step into having the courage to make the change and the willingness to change. When you trust yourself in that and when you're in alignment with the way forward, something magical happens. The universe opens up and all the steps come. There's some ease and grace into it rather than struggle and effort, if you like. It's really amazing to feel that and have that experience at times. Thank you. So Susanne, we'll finish up with you and then we'll do a round of if there's one thing that you could recommend for listeners and viewers today around unraveling the mask we wear and the roles we play. We'll go to Susanne and then maybe you'll give us your one tip and then we'll go around. How's that feel?
Absolutely. I hope I have time to just jump in on the idea of identity and roles. I believe that a lot of people are acting as if the role they play is their identity. And sadly, that doesn't really work out because I was this certain kind of wife in my first marriage. And when that broke apart, had I not remembered who I was inside, a woman who makes things work, a woman who makes the best of things, a woman who moves forward, a woman who learns from her mistakes, I wouldn't be where I was today. I would have been that crumpled person because that role broke. And I can say that really lightly, but how many of us know someone who was retired from a job and within months has died?
Yeah.
Because their life was that role. They don't realize who they are within. And so that's something that I love that Anne talked about identity like that. And Rachel talked about changing those ideas in our mind. And what we're doing when we're doing that is we're shifting our identity to someone who believes this now, someone who knows that this is possible. And we can shift our identity. We can shift it to something healthier, to someone who's more active, to someone who realizes money comes easily to them. We can shift our identity by shifting those beliefs. But the core, the woman that I am, the strong moving forward, that part's the same. But what does she believe now? And making those shifts. So for me, remembering that our roles and our masks are not who we are. They're literally just that, a role or a mask that we play and that we use. And yeah, you're going to have to come back to me for the tip on the question because I don't remember the question and I'll know it after you ask everyone else.
No worries. Yeah, I love you actually that you drilled down into that identity because I was thinking the same earlier around how many people do I know when they go through a big transition in life don't know who they are anymore because they've identified so intimately with that role as their identity, and that's not actually true. Yeah, so thanks for bringing that up, Susanne. And okay, so the question is, in summary, if you were to give one tip, one easy tip or one step that people could take easily into coming back into being themselves and being authentically and unraveling those roles and masks, what would it be? It can be something really simple. Does anyone want to start there?
I'll start because I just finished.
Okay.
One of the things that people can do, honestly, is to use the emotional scale as their indicator. Esther Hicks, Abraham, you know the Hicks, I'm hoping they talk about the emotional scale, and what that is really just indicators to us as to how closely we are in alignment with what is meant for us in this world. And so if we have a moment of sadness or a moment of weariness or a moment of elation, that's fine, but where are we operating on a whole? And if we're in the hopelessness, the despair, that those types of feelings, then to definitely take a look and go, who am I being? Where am I? What is actually meant for me? And allow themselves to make that shift, because those emotions are actually our indicators. And that's when we can really start to do that reflection and that shift in our lives, just by noticing.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks, Susanne. Catherine, would you like to go next?
It's so weird. What came in my head was, it's okay to let everything burn to the ground, because sometimes we have to let things be destroyed in order to allow that energy to alchemize to something new. And if anyone knows physics, you can't create or destroy energy. It has to be transferred. So letting things burn to the ground, letting friendships go because they no longer resonate with you, relationships, your career, however that looks. It's okay. I've done it multiple times and I'm still here and standing and still smiling, because the other side, it's worth it. But sometimes we have to just let it all burn and see where we are on the other side when we come back out.
Amazing. Great advice. Thanks. Rachel?
Yeah, so what I do every day is, actually, some people have affirmations in the day. I have them at night time because, as we know, it's the moment just before you drift off to sleep is the easiest way to tap into your subconscious. So I think about what is a massive win from the day. And this could be as simple as, I got up when my alarm went off. It doesn't need to be, I won an award. You can just think of what is a win for the day. So it puts you in a good mood. And then if you're thinking about, you want to change something in your life, but you're unsure, think about what lights you up, what makes you smile, what could you talk about forever, what is your passion, and then just roll with that. Take action, like we were saying, and everything else will follow. As long as it lights you up and you keep on praising those little wins along the way, because we sometimes do forget how much we've done. So that's really important. Your people that don't believe you will congratulate you on those bigger ones, on the awards, on the, when you can buy a house or whatever it is that they believe is an achievement. But it's important for you to appreciate your little wins, so that when you finally get to your big goal, you're like, wow, I've come so far. I am amazing. I did this myself, or whatever it is. And you will feel that love and belief.
Beautiful. And life is about all the little bits in between. It's not about the big weekends, and we shouldn't be living from weekend to weekend. We should be living from moment to moment. Yeah, thanks, Rachel. Sallyann.
I love what Catherine had to say about letting everything burn to the ground. It sounds drastic, but looking at it, okay, we need to make space for the new to come in. There has to be space for the new to come in. So another way possibly for me saying that is not holding on so tight, letting go, be open to new things coming in. We may not understand what they are, but be open to the new coming in, and be grateful for all the little wins, as Rachel was talking about. Be grateful for all those little wins, because gratitude goes a long way to supporting us to move forward. So be grateful for those little wins, acknowledge them and be grateful. And just know that once we start making that change, it sets the wheels in motion and we are supported. So just know we're supported, letting things go, and be grateful for the little wins along the way. Thank you.
Great, Sallyann. Thank you. Anne.
Yeah, I was, if you find yourself stuck, like bleeding out, you're weary, you're tired, you find yourself saying, how the hell did I get here? Or I'm tired of being tired, that kind of stuff. Take some time and just do like an out of body experience and look at your life like from a 5,000 point view. Look down and just journal and write about what is your reality.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you were in it and it has become our normal way of life and we can't see it anymore. So take some time to really step out and observe, just observe your life and be like, what is my job like? What is my relationship like? My marriage, my family, whatever it is you have going on. Go back and just really look and find out where you have lost yourself along the way. Because
Yeah.
you can't change anything you can't recognize.
Absolutely. Thank you, Anne. Yeah, the stepping back and taking a moment to pause and reflect is great. I think mine is, I've been speaking about a lot today, is actually giving yourself permission. Really, because often we go through life thinking that we need everyone else's permission. And often when I'm working with people, when I really drill down onto this, it's actually the person themselves allowing themselves to give themselves permission before anyone else. And the question I often ask is, whose permission do you need? And often I get, when people are going into that deeper state, is actually, I need to give myself permission. And so that's a really powerful way to look at it. Yeah. So I don't know about all of you, but I've really enjoyed this conversation today. Thank you. And Sophia's jumped back on to give me a prompt to finish up. I was just about to go there. So thank you so much, you lovely women from all around the world with so much wisdom and courage and all the things that we've spoken about today. And I'll hand it back to Sophia to wrap it up for us.
Thank you, Jennylee. And no, you don't need any prompt. I've been sitting here enjoying the conversation and I wanted to come in and go, wow, and really thank everyone because it has been a great conversation. And totally to you, Jennylee, no, you don't have to worry about getting permission from anyone else. It's all about giving ourselves permission to be in the moment, whatever that moment may be. So thank you for another wonderful conversation. Looking forward to next month. For anyone who is watching live or the replay, we will be back. Jennylee will be back same time next month with a continuation of being you, living life authentically, how we can really step into our true self. And a great thank you and appreciation to Anne, who's joining us for the first time. Do come back, Anne. Hopefully you will. And Susanne, Sallyann, Catherine, great to see you all. And again, of course, Rachel. Don't know what time it is for Rachel, but it is truly appreciated that you have joined us. And for everyone who's watching, click on the links below. Reach out to these amazing women. Come and join us at Sacred You for all our other upcoming wisdom circles and everything else that we have to offer. Just sacredyou.love. We all know it. And we will see you next time. Thank you ever so much.